it sounds simple for me to say I'm an explorer, but that's years of getting to know
Totally.
myself and understand what lights me up, what makes me really excited.
Hey guys, welcome to From Within the podcast. This is a quick little intro here. Lorri McCrackin and I had an amazing conversation. And I know I say that a lot because there's a lot of amazing conversations I have, but this one is so rich right to the very end. We go through how she started one of the top design firms in her city with zero education, zero background in design, how she overcame two abusive style relationships. She talks about being 50 and single, talks about relationships, gives amazing advice for female entrepreneurs who she's mentoring. I have to tell you guys, this is worth a listen. There is gold throughout the entire thing. Please leave us a message, send us something on Facebook, Instagram, or even just jump onto the podcast, give it a review. Let's do it. Cheers. Hey guys, Ben here from Within the Podcast. We have a guest on the show named Lorri McCrackin. She is one of a kind human being. She runs one of the most successful design firms in the city, interior design, called Lux. She'll tell you about that in a second. She also coaches women entrepreneurs. She has the ability to cut right through to your heart. If you're ever working one-to-one with Lorri, she can cut directly into your heart. She probably hates that I'm saying this because she's kind of humble, but she can see through the bullshit. And she's somehow almost like a mama bear, gentle, but crazy confident, cuts right in and almost, I don't know, it's like you feel so good to be called out with Lorri. And I've seen her in action. I've seen her in her design world. I've seen her work with people. And this is something I've been trying to get her on the show for a while. And this is a great day to be listening to this podcast. Thank you, Lorri, for jumping on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Ben. Thank you. That was an amazing introduction. I appreciate that very much, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your design company? We'll get some information out, for those people that need the credibility. I need you to brag a little bit. For the people that need all the details, we'll drop some of the details, and then we're going to get into the what I like is the fun stuff. So anyways, yeah, tell me about Lux. Where to come from? What are you doing? What do you do all day?
Well, so Lux Design is probably I would say my second career. I've had Lux Design for 13 years now with my business partner, Angela Marchese. We are primarily residential interior design. You know me, I'm not a bragger. That's really uncomfortable for
I
me.
know.
But
I knew what I knew.
I would say, we do anything from duplexes to 10,000 square foot custom homes. We've done work for NHL owners. I've done a 3-story penthouse across from Rogers Place, vacation homes in Phoenix, BC. I would say the majority of my business are repeat clients. And I'm just super lucky to have built the type of business that we have, and I love it.
Lucky, whatever. Anyways, so okay, that's cool. I know that what you have. So tell a little bit about what you're doing with entrepreneur women as well. I know that's kind of fresh and it's really close to your heart and it's going well. What's going on there?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, it's probably that's my third business, I would say now. Is the coaching side of things, and it is fairly fresh and new for me. So it's been something that's been going on for only a couple of years now, but I think it came out of the desire really to just help other women. And I mean, I'm not saying that I don't resonate with men as well too. I'm sure that I would. It's just, this is where I've started and it's what's felt most comfortable for me. So female entrepreneurs, but in terms of small business is just really being able to share some of the experiences that I've had in an effort to maybe just make things slightly easier for other women starting out. All the things that I felt like I struggled through and had to learn on my own, that if I could have just known those 3 things, that if somebody could have shared that with me, that would have made it that much easier for me, or allowed me to move forward a little bit faster, or just maybe not struggled as much. And so I love the feeling of being able to share my own experiences with other women, for them to take what they can or not, as whatever their choice is. So that's my main goal right now, is really just to help other women move forward. And I would say to that end, it's been really about helping, I would say, women or entrepreneurs think about the life that they actually want to create, and then build their business to help support that lifestyle. So although it is practical business learning and business experience, it's really first around developing the life that they want, because that's what I've learned myself personally over the last number of years.
Yeah, I get it completely. Do the same thing with business owners as well. Because the thing is, it's like, hey, I want to do this and that and that. Like they don't know, they almost don't have a map. It's like, how do you get to New York City? Let's go. But it's almost like, I want to get to the eastern side of the world. Oh, like what? Like, do you, like, first of all, do you really? Actually, on that note, I remember when years ago, like we're talking years ago, didn't you want to live in Europe?
I did. I wanted to live in Italy.
Italy. It just seems so foreign to me now. I knowing you for a while. It's like, what is it? So that's exactly what we're talking about here, right? Like you have this, what changed to really get defined on what you really want, Lorri?
I think part of the living in Italy was just this huge dream, right? To live somewhere other than where I was. I'm an adventurer at heart, for sure. If I was to introduce myself to somebody, I would say, my name is Lorri and I'm an explorer. And that's
Love it. Lorri the Explorer. Isn't that something? No, that's Dora. Never mind. Never mind.
But that's really how I see myself, is an explorer. And so I'm super curious about life, and I love adventure. And so I think the part that really resonated with me in living in Italy in particular was just being somewhere where I was out of my element, where it was uncomfortable, where I didn't speak the language. Like that
crazy.
It still excites me to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things I realized and started to realize, as the years went on, is how important my family, my relationships and things like that were. So how do I get that same feeling of adventure and being out of my comfort zone, but still surround myself with the people that I love and not have to go like across the world to do that?
Yeah. So where's the dream now, Lorri? We're going off the rails here. I sent you some questions and stuff. Too bad, too sad. But because I think it's really interesting, because we're going to dive into how you're helping people, and your backstory is amazing. But I'm just curious, like, is there a place, like, what do you want, Lorri? Like, if you're helping women to really decide, like entrepreneurs, what do you want? And I think that's an evolving question, to be fair. Okay. That's going to change year by year, but where are you at today? Like, what do you want?
Yeah. I would say one of the things I want, which isn't so different, and it's come a little bit full circle, not necessarily Italy, but I would say one of the things that I know that I want is to live in 2 or 3 places a year. So
cool.
Where before it was, I just want to completely leave Canada and I want to go live somewhere else. Now I've come to the realization that I would love to spend winters somewhere other than Edmonton. But not only that is, if I could live in Edmonton as a home base, but then have maybe 2 other places in the world, maybe Ireland, maybe Victoria, like just a couple of places.
Maybe that sounds pretty specific.
I'm pretty specific right now. So
like, maybe I've thought about this for 17 hours in my life and I know where I want to go. Anyways, okay.
But knowing also myself more now, that next year it might be 2 different places, and that's okay. Yeah. Like it doesn't need, if it changes, it changes. And I have no attachment to that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Amazing. Some people get attached to their goals, and I feel like it stresses the crap out of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? I love the fact that you've just kind of like, you've got a really clear vision, but you're not attached to it. I think that's the secret. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I feel like attaching myself to the knowing that I'm an explorer, and that's what makes me happy. That's what drives my decision making. So
very cool.
I can be an explorer by going to Ireland. I could be an explorer by going to Banff. That's what gives me the openness to just sort of not be attached to what that place is. And it's just like that's part of the adventure, is actually changing my mind and kind of going, hey, today, this is what I feel like doing. And that's the adventure. Because what lights me up is the doing something new and the new experience. It isn't necessarily the destination per se.
So if people are listening and they're getting inspired, like, hey, I want to live this kind of life. What about people that are in a business or in a job? Like, how do you transition to that place? Like, how do you actually go, hey, I'm just going to pick up and go? Because I've known you for a while and there's a transition. Or, like, and then how do you know people aren't just running away from their problems and saying, I want to travel? Like, how do you help
Yeah.
people get to the place where there's like knowing authentically what they want?
I mean, I think it starts exactly there, is knowing authentically what I want. And, it sounds simple for me to say I'm an explorer, but that's years of getting to know
Totally.
myself and understand what lights me up, what makes me really excited. And, for a long time, you notice about me, but for a long time, I actually thought there was something wrong with me because I
Mm,
couldn't just settle. I couldn't feel comfortable doing the same thing every single day. And, friends and family would say, why can't you just, stick with one thing and be happy? And I thought, am I broken? Like, what's wrong with me that I can't just, stay in one job, stay in one house, stay in one, sort of place and be satisfied with that. And I'm constantly challenging myself and wanting to grow. And so it was learning that that's just me. And what does light me up and make me feel excited and inspired is new experience in general. And, I'm a super curious person. So whether it's learning a new language or it's just I see something and go, I need to know how that works. In my interior
mm,
design business, I'm the designer that's on the job site. I want that mill worker to show me how he's building something so that next time I design it, I understand, oh, I can't do it that way because we can't actually, the wood doesn't go that way or whatever, right? It's just learning how the house is roughed in for electrical. Like, I'm super curious about all of that. And that doesn't make me broken. That just makes me different. And now I
mm.
understand that's what makes me unique. And is part of actually my zone of genius, if you want to call it that, to coin a phrase. So it's like, it's what makes me different. And so learning that about myself, that I'm just an explorer at heart, and that's where I love being, gave me the permission to um, do things differently, change things up, be more innovative, and not feel like there was something wrong with me. In fact, it actually was a strength of mine and something that made me unique and different.
What you just said is so powerful, Lori. Like think about that, man. Like I can relate to that. Like I feel like if you don't, there's a place where you just got to own who you are, even if everything is against you. Like it's like everyone says to do things. I think about when they Steve Jobs probably walked into his boardroom and says, hey, I want to have one button on a phone, when BlackBerry had thousands of buttons, and the more buttons, the better. And he goes, I don't fit that. Like, how do you, like, it's unbelievable internal strength. Let's talk about where the strength comes from, Lori. Like before we talked a little bit about your struggle. And let's just make it really clear. You didn't go to design school. You didn't go to design school. You literally just said, I'm going to be an interior designer. I have absolutely no written hard credibility or proof or case studies or any following. Zero. I'm going to go be a designer.
Yeah.
I think like, where does that strength come from? And not only did you become a designer, you become a sought after, very successful designer dealing with some very high net worth people. And it's really cool to see you you broke every rule in the book, Lori.
Yeah.
And so
I
follow,
could cry when you say that, Ben, because yeah, that just, you're absolutely right. And I think, we can talk a little bit about the design and how I got into design and, the education piece. But I think what you touched on before that is, when I look back to my young adult life, I think about a time of massive resilience for me where I had to learn, and you and I are very similar in that way in terms of like our stories are very different, but similar.
yeah.
And, I think back to being a 23-year-old single mom with a 6-month-old baby, recently separated. I got married at 19, which, that's a whole other story on its own, but, dropped out of my third year of business school and business degree in university because I got pregnant and had a baby. moved to Edmonton with my husband at the time. And, a month later found myself as a single mom getting out of an abusive relationship.
Mm.
And, the first step was the courage to leave that relationship.
Wow.
You know, and again, being so young and being in a city where like I didn't know a single person, not one, other than my child and my ex, and that was about it. And I remember my parents calling me, who lived in Calgary, not far from Edmonton at all. And for the first time, I shared with them the abuse that had happened in my marriage. They had no idea what I had been going through, and their advice or their guidance to me at the time was, you need to come home. Like, come home, finish university, live with us until you get back on your feet. And everything in me at that time knew that that was not the right thing for me to do. And I knew how important it was for me to figure out, for my own self-worth, I needed to get back on my feet, and I needed to do it by myself. And that's just how I felt at the time, is just, if I'm going to succeed in life, I need to have the courage right now to do it myself. And probably only anybody who's been in an abusive relationship may understand, to the extent that your self-worth and your confidence is blown and shot at that, in those moments. And so I had to find a place to live and get a loan for a car and find a job. And, my degree wasn't finished. And, I was literally just looking for something to do with, receptionist, anything that I could, just to pay for my child and I. And
Wow.
I would say that experience and the next, 10, 12 years that came after that were just a period of massive growth for me. And just the confidence built upon the confidence. And every time I was successful at something, it drove me to keep going and try something different. And that changed my life, actually, and put me in a totally different direction. And like I said, every step I took gave me more confidence, built my self-esteem back. I worked in a career for about 12 years for a large Canadian company. I was their, very first female manager in a company of over 2,000 people.
Amazing.
And I was able to climb the corporate ladder very quickly, but I was so driven. There's a lot of negative that comes with that as well too, but I was very driven. And so that is, just to answer your first question, in terms of the confidence or the strength, I developed incredible inner strength during that. And the really positive thing that I see is this attitude that I could achieve anything that I wanted. And I still believe that to this day. Like, there's nothing that I can't do. And I know that because I've proven that when I put my mind to something, I can do it. And so starting, the second half of your question is starting a business that I had zero education in. And I also had never run a business. So it was sort of two brand new things to me. It was just like, I'll figure it out. Like, I'll figure it out and it will be fine. And so that was sort of my attitude going into it. Now, I should clarify that my first career was for a plumbing and heating wholesale company. So I had a lot of experience there in the construction industry. I knew a lot of people in the city. So there's no way that I probably would have had the connections and had the ability for my business to take off the way it did I not already have some of those connections. So that made it a lot easier for me to be able to know who to talk to. I knew, who to reach out to learn things, all of that. But I also had to have the courage to do that. So, it was phoning up people that I knew, developers I knew. It was phoning up plumbers that I knew or electricians and saying, hey, can you walk me through this? I've got a lot to learn, right? So I had the guts and the courage to do that as well too. And I think that's a really important point.
Coming from this, like, it's cool to see, like, you were a single mom, you just came through an abusive relationship. And it's funny, like you and I know each other, and I feel like man, I feel like the struggle is what builds confidence. Like
Yeah.
overcoming something, you gain this confidence that you can never lose. Like you just
Well,
have this level of like, I can do it. Now you said that, I wrote it down. You said, I just know I can do anything. And that is like drugs to me. Like it feels like like I guess drugs is a negative one, but it's just a rush. Just
yeah,
a rush. I feel like, wow. And like to really believe like I'm the same way. I can do anything. If I want to play violin, I'll figure it out. If I want to be like an Irish dancer, you do not want to see that. But I bet you I could do half decent if I worked at it.
yeah,
Like there's just like there is literally nothing because I'm also an overcomer. When
right.
and the gift is that you got shit on. The gift is
Yeah,
that the struggle, and I think people forget, they run from it. Like you could have ran away from it. You could have been coddled by the mom and dad and helped out, and but you said no. I'm not. Intuitively, it's like that's not the answer. You actually leaned into the struggle.
yeah,
It's almost like if we can actively embrace the struggle, could we fast track our confidence
right.
by taking the hard way and climbing that mountain that you just didn't think you could climb? And once you've nailed it, every other mountain around you feels small.
Well, and it's facing fear, and you know this too. Like sometimes, there's nothing wrong with fear, but it's what you do with it, right? And so I feel like people say this and it's cliche, embrace the fear, whatever, but it really, in practical terms, it meant being scared shitless to do something, but doing it anyway because you knew that on the other side of that, you were going to feel better, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, it gives you the confidence to say, so
Yeah.
it is, the struggles do build confidence, but I would take it further to say, you know, acting through the struggle is what gives you the confidence. So you actually have to take a step.
It's
You know,
action.
yeah, it is
So
action.
no, it's like fight or flight. You almost got to like just
Fight.
like those instincts. It's fight or flight or take an action step. Like
Yes.
it's almost like do something in it. But you said something that I'm not like, it's like I just think I just want to have a clarity because you're like, we embrace the fear or we go through it because we know on the other side it's going to be better. I actually think it's not always better. I think it's just something we learn about ourselves. I think
Right.
yes, better,
Yes.
but I feel like we dig deeper because I feel like I want to debunk that's like, yeah, go through the hard times. It's going to be good. Well, it might not be. But the
Yeah.
reward is you will have a deeper understanding of who you are. You will have a better, clearer compass of what to do next. Like it's almost like I'm always so, maybe I'm just way more negative, but I'm just like, yeah, it will be better. But just realize it might not feel better.
Yeah.
It
And
might take
maybe,
some time.
yeah.
Like you said, I wrote down here, you said 10 to 12 years was part of your journey. 10 to 12 years means you got to be yeah, just get through the other side. Yeah, the other side might be in 10 years.
Yeah.
But the
Totally.
patience is really important, right? To live a lifestyle of overcomer versus like, wow, I've already gone through that. Now I got to go through something again. Are you for real? Of course you do.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
life.
That's constant.
It's
Yeah.
constant, but eventually it's not as hard.
Well,
Eventually
and
it's different.
yeah. And I should go back to and clarify that, you know, although I have sort of an overarching feeling that I can do anything. Don't get me wrong. There have absolutely been moments when I don't feel like that.
Yeah,
When it's, like
so true.
literally I've been laid on the floor
Hmm.
sobbing because I
Yeah.
think I just can't do another day like this. Right. So
Thank you for sharing that.
it's
Very
not that
powerful.
every single day I feel like I'm on top of the world and I can do anything.
Totally.
It's very much a roller coaster, but it's in those moments when I'm laying on the floor that I can look back and say, but look where you've come from. Like, look what
Yeah.
you've done. And I can remind myself, and you
Yeah.
slowly get back up and you feel, okay, I'm okay. I call on my good friends like you and say, I just need a coffee today, or
Yeah.
I need some inspiration, or I need some support, or whatever it is. Right. And I've learned later in life to lean on other people, because that was the one thing I think that I did myself a disservice through those 10 or 12 years that I talked about. I did it very much alone and didn't
Mm,
allow anyone else to know the struggle that I was going through, because I had a lot of shame around it
for
too.
sure.
So I think that's something I've learned later in life is the importance of relationships, and hence not wanting to go live my life in Italy. Like, I love the people that surround me today, and I can't imagine not being a integral part of my community that I've created.
It's funny. It's really cool how what you're saying here. I'm just going to talk something through. I'm an extrovert. So when I talk, I think. If I sit quietly, you think I'm thinking? Nope. Just getting tired. So if I'm talking, I'm thinking. So I just want to think this through, because you chose, let me just think this through. You did everything alone. You know, you did a lot, you did well. And then you started opening up and letting people know who you really were and the struggle. And I was part of that process, and me and you very much share the same thing and still struggle today, to be honest.
Right.
And what's really cool, that's where coaches come in, a good, authentic coach, because I don't know all the time how to make a friend. You know what I mean? Like, how do you develop a lifelong friend that you can go and share? Like, me and you have been to hell a couple times together. Okay. Yeah. You've seen some shit that's gone down, and we've developed something. We've worked for years together in our lives and as friends. So, but that would not have come quickly. That we were forced to show each other in some level, and many times in our experiences together. And I think about, that's why these women entrepreneurs, that's why the business owners and real estate agents, like, where do they have that ability to have that support, to have someone that is going to be authentically for them? Yeah. You know, like, it's hard because I get it. Marketing has wrecked everything because it's more about leveraging and scaling than impact. But the thing is, I just think about, that's why we have coaches. That's why because sometimes it's hard to build that lifelong friend who's there for you. Totally. And I feel like there's people that would let you in, and it's a coaching experience. And I feel like what do you think? Is that what you're finding as a coach?
Yeah. And I would say that, like, you know, we all have friends who love us to death, but would never say something challenging to us. Like, they're just going to be our cheerleader, right? And they're not going to necessarily tell us the truth. And it's not because they don't love us. That's just, they're not comfortable doing that, right? So I think for me, it's been really important to have people in my life who've been where I want to go. So there's this level of, you've been through something that I'm going through, and you have something to contribute and help me. So there's this wisdom around that I really gravitate towards. So it's finding people who've been through or are someplace where I want to be or want to go. The other thing I think that's been really important for me is finding mentors or coaches or friends that have no vested interest in the outcome of my life or which direction I take, that in their heart, all they care about is that I'm fulfilled and I get clarity, and, you know, and so that's a very different type of relationship. And I think that's where the coach or the mentor comes in, is they have no vested interest in the outcome of my life, whether I live in Italy or Victoria, or whether I'm running a business or whether I'm in a corporate job, makes zero difference to them. So that's the other piece that I think is really important. And that is where a coach or a mentor, like, if you know someone in your life that you see and you think, wow, like, I've gotten to know that person, I really love the values that they display and they feel genuine to me, and they're in a place where I want to be, then that's a clue to me of somebody that you might want to align yourself with or could inspire you.
And good people, there's good people out there that, and there's also good, really, like, if someone was coaching with you, you would be really about them. And that's the key, right? Like, it's like you said, it's not an upsell. It's just really the grading system is that how can you impact this person to be more who they are, to embrace their struggle, to find success, like that your motive is them. That's a really important piece when you're choosing a mentor or having a friend or like these people that support you, because I believe there's a lot of people that go to people for support and they get used and they get abused. And I think it's a really important piece, because there's millions of coaches now and everyone's learning how to do everything, funnels and all these things. You got to use your intuition, but it's true. Like, if they have a vested interest in, I don't know, like, you got to have clarity. I think if you ever had any doubt, I'd ask people straight questions, just direct questions. Like, are you, what do you want from me? But,
and I think too, for me, and I know, cause we've talked about this before, Ben, that you're similar, that, what you need in your life can change from year to year, or from month to month, right? And so it's really important, I think, as well. I feel like for me personally, I'm going to have a coach probably for the rest of my life, or
Yeah.
somebody that's mentoring me.
Yeah.
But that person, in terms of what I need, may change from year to year. So
Yeah.
really understanding, like, whether you do this at the beginning of the year as you're planning your year, or whatever that looks like, is sitting down and saying, okay, what are my goals this year? Like, what do I really, if I look back and say, I just had the best year ever, here's what happened.
Awesome.
Who's going to
Love
help
it.
me get there?
Yeah.
And what is the skill set that I'm missing, or that, somebody else can help me through. And I'm at a point right now where I'm starting to look like way outside my circle to authors of books that I've been inspired by. And I'm saying, like, what's the harm in sending an email and saying, hey, can I have a Zoom call? I have a very recent new friend named Kelsey Ramsden, who's been the top female entrepreneur 2 years in a row in Canada. She works with Richard Branson. Like, 2 years ago, I would have thought, oh, what? She's not going to talk to me. And we've had like a handful of conversations in the last 2 months. And she likes me, and I like her. Like, it's just like, and why wouldn't she, right? But sometimes it's,
why not? Yeah.
I think so my point, I guess, is looking outside of yourself and saying, what do I need to get to that place where I want to be, and who can help me get there? And don't just limit it to the people that you currently know. Like, think outside that, right?
Take a risk. Totally.
Yes.
So tell me this, you've got 2 kids.
Yeah.
I've met them. They're both amazing. Like, they're like, your daughter, like, it just has this unbelievable energy about her. I don't know where that comes from,
Yeah.
but she'll tell you how it is. She's
Yeah.
really funny. And, you got, your son, I've met him once or twice, but tell me about your kids. This is like massive for you. I definitely wanted to stop and mention.
Yeah. Oh man. I could talk about my kids for like 10 hours, but my kids are amazing. And I feel super proud of the relationship that we have developed, the 3 of us, in the last number of years. And it was not always that way, as you know, Ben. I've had a lot of struggles in raising, particularly, I would say, more struggles with my son, partly because I think, I was 22 when I had him. So, really young, and being kind of a single mom with him. And so I've been married twice. My daughter is from my second marriage that also unfortunately came to an end, but they're 9 years apart, the 2 of them. So very different children. So I think where the turnaround came with my kids would be probably right when you and I first met, and I started to work with Philip McKernan, as you did. And I can look back at that point as being another massive turning point, almost like the getting out of the abusive relationship. So another massive turning point for me. But I got to a place where I was looking at myself and my 2 children and feeling like, well, honestly, I felt like I was the worst mom ever. Like, on the outside looking in, everybody thought I had it all together. And I had this amazing career. I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was making great money. But my home life was a disaster. And that's how I felt. And, my son was spiraling out of control as a young, teenager. And I just wasn't spending any time with them. And so one of the very first things that I decided is that I needed to get my family back together. I needed to start with that relationship, or those relationships, before I worked on any other relationship in my life. And so we took a trip to Italy because it was one of the places I wanted to go.
Nice.
And we didn't just take a trip. I go big or go home. And so we took like a 6.5-week trip in the summertime to Italy, and we traveled all around Italy, Greece, and Croatia. And we're together like 24/7 for that time. And my son at that time was living out on his own. He'd been living on his own since he was 17. So he hadn't been living with us. And so he and my daughter really didn't have much of a relationship at all. They barely knew each other.
Oh, wow.
And so for the 3 of us to get to spend that time together, we got to know each other. We had lots of fights and tons of laughs, as you can imagine, as any family probably would. But 2 things happened. I think we grew a lot closer because we got to know each other, just and had fun. And that's one thing about traveling and adventure, is when you have experiences together as a family, there's something bonding about that. But the second thing that happened is I started to feel pride in making a good decision that impacted my family positively. And so it was like, okay, maybe I'm not such a crap mom. Like, I just made a good decision, and I just, you know, it doesn't really, I can't change what's happened, but I can change what happens moving forward. And this is the first step.
So what would you say to the single moms right now? Because your son saw you go through 2 marriages. Your son, you're like I could imagine the heavy shame and guilt and everything that you would have had to carry. Moms without that feel shame and guilt that they're not good enough. It drives me insane. I don't understand it. It's definitely a mother thing, but like tell me this. What is the positive effect on your kids that they had to go through such struggle with you? Tell me what's the positive effect on these kids?
Well, I think the positive probably came in this same transition. I would say what they saw is that I was able to move past it and learn how to love myself again and believe in myself as a mother to them. So, I mean, I talked to them about that, and I told them, here's the shame I feel. Like, it wasn't just taking a trip together. It was saying, like, I need to talk to you guys, and I need to share with you how I've been feeling, and you know, an apology of sorts. But more than that, it was just like, here's how I was feeling, and here's what I want moving forward for us. Here's what I want our relationship to look like, and my commitment to you guys that this is what I'm going to do differently. And I think it changed everything, and not immediately, but that's what I would say to other young moms who feel like that, whether they're single moms or not, that it's never too late to change, you know, your behavior or change your relationship with your kids. And I mean, Ben, you know all about that as well.
100%.
Like, I know your story, but it's like, okay, just decide that today things are going to be different moving forward. And I have shared a lot with my kids, and appropriate sharing, but I'm not afraid to tell them, I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. And that's okay.
So let's just, because I think because I've experienced what you're saying as well, about, it just sounds like, be honest, for real with them.
Totally. Yeah.
They don't need you to be strong. Is that right?
No, they don't. Well, let me
get some context to that maybe.
I think both of my kids, I know they would, because I've heard them say this to me. They've said it to me. One of the things they admire about me is my strength. I already know that. And I know that they look at me and see me as a strong, capable woman and mother. So it's almost like, in being vulnerable, they actually see me as stronger. And that is a huge lesson in my life. You know that, Ben, but understanding that vulnerability is not weakness.
It's massive.
Vulnerability actually takes way more courage than it does to be quiet and, you know, strong and stoic, as the quote would say, you know, you're strong, sort of silent type or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, but vulnerability has taken way more courage. And starting with my kids, that took more courage than anything, because how they see me is probably more important than any other relationship that I have in my life. So it's the scariest one to be vulnerable in, right? Because I just want them to love me, and I want them to think I'm a great mom, and all of those things.
Yeah. So here's another topic, because I know you, and speaking about vulnerability, there's an audience out there, and I know specific people that are over 45, over 40. Are you 50 yet?
I'm over 50. Yeah,
It's crazy. It's crazy. I think you're more like 40. But the thing is, you're 50 and single, okay?
Yeah.
And it's a conversation that you don't just run up to a 50-year-old and go, "Why are you single?" or like, just start. But really, I think there's people out there that have needing a man is one of the biggest problems that I see with women. I can tell you specific people I'm coached and have coaching that I'm coaching, that is such a big thing. Like, their dream is to finally have a man.
Right.
Do you wrestle with that too, Lorri?
There have been times for sure that I've wrestled with that, Ben. And I think that, I don't today. And I can say that with 100%
Yeah,
truth
I
and
believe you.
honesty that I don't. Um, I think what I started to realize about myself that it was more, it wasn't necessarily that I was missing having an intimate relationship or a partner or a man. It was more that I was lonely. So
Wow.
there's a difference between, feeling lonely and having, an intimate relationship, right? And so I think when I was able to separate those two, I was like, okay, if the root of it is really just loneliness or fear that I'm going to be alone as I age,
Wow.
and once my kids are out of the house, it's just going to be me, and I'm going to be lonely, and who am I going to talk to, all that kind of stuff. When I was able to separate those two things, then all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, if it's loneliness that's the route that I want to sort of navigate through, that looks totally different, because all it
Mm.
means is I have to have relationships in my life,
Wow.
and relationships and connectiveness and all of that is very different than needing a man in my life, right? And so I'm at a place today, like, would I like to be, in full disclosure here, when I do my visualization exercises, which I do, um, I visualize coming home to my beautiful home and
Cool.
walking into the kitchen, and there's a man who I love desperately there, who we're making dinner together. So would I love that? Absolutely, I would. But it's that's just something that I want. It's not something that I need, because
Amazing.
I've created a life that I'm happy with, and that I don't have loneliness, and I've nurtured relationships. My kids, we talked about that already, but some of my business partner, my family, my close friends like yourself, I'm not lonely. And I'm
Yeah.
surrounded, in my old age, I know I will be surrounded by all of these people who love me, and I love them in return. And
And think about the relationships prior. How did you attract them versus what you will attract now? The needing of a man is going to attract a man that feels like he needs to be needed. It's almost,
exactly.
and then it creates a controlling environment. It's like I was that guy. I was the controlling guy. I needed to be needed all the time. I still wrestle with it, to be honest. I'm like, Renee, so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
haven't given me a kiss in about 3 minutes. Are you okay? Like, why don't you kiss me a
Yeah.
little bit? Like, she's like, fuck,
Yeah.
like, come on. Like,
Yeah. Well, and
I'm being
Ben,
dramatic,
you know me.
but it's interesting. Like I think that by not needing a man, but not being an asshole about it, like no, I don't need a man.
No.
Well, that's a person that probably does, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying like when you're just like I really don't need a man to fill my gap, because what happens is you'll attract a man that's needed to be the guy that fills your gap, and
Exactly.
then the moment you gain confidence, the moment you don't need him, he's going to hold on. And
Right.
I feel like it's really important to be single and 50 and happy than single and 50 and having men that get attracted to you that are needing to be the person to fill the gap.
100%, Ben. And you know this because you've been privy to some of my dating experiences over the last 10 years. And that was the type of man that I was attracting. And I'm like, what is
Amazing.
happening? Like, first of all, I wanted to be needed. And, because that felt really good
Of
as
course.
well. So
Yeah.
it was just dysfunctional. Like, I was attracting the man that I didn't want, and then going, how come I have this kind of guy, right? It's like,
That's
yeah.
right.
And you
Yeah.
were so good at sometimes helping me see that. But I honestly, I can say today that I'm at a place where I just really understand that that was more about loneliness than anything.
It's
And
amazing.
it creates a different conversation for me.
I'm so glad that we can talk about this, and it just shows the level of just openness and vulnerability that you have. And I think this is a conversation that many women will be able to hear and be like, holy crap, she's just talking about it. Like it's so inspiring. I really hope if anyone's listening to this right now, please send me or Lorri a message, how that's impacted them. I think that's a really interesting topic. I see so many people stuck in this moment in their life. It's almost like this stuck moment, and then they'll die lonely. The
Right.
very thing that they don't want, they'll die alone. Like it's
Yeah.
literally what's going on. So
Yeah.
now if we think about shift gears here a little bit. Actually, remember when we traveled to we both were in the I was thinking we should tell a story. We were traveling together. We were heading to Colorado, and I booked the hotels.
Oh, yes.
And they're like, we'll save some money and it'll be good. We're going to the same event or whatever. And like, I didn't even think about it. Like, there's no room, there's no nothing. I'm like, oh shoot, I guess we're sleeping together, Lorri. And it was like, it was nothing, but it was so stupid. And then the next,
you're telling this story.
I know. Well, because it's funny. And so it's like, we had to like, okay, you leave, I'm getting changed. I leave. It's like, and
we should clarify, there were two queen size beds in the room. We weren't sleeping together.
In the same room. Yeah. But it was a total miss on me. I'm like, oh yeah, we booked in. I'm like, oh shit, we didn't get the separate room or anything. So anyways, then the next one we booked.
We had two. So Ben had to book the extra night on our way there, and I booked the extra night on the way back. So of course, Ben, we walk into the room and there's two queen beds, like, and I'm looking at him going, what is happening right now? And the room I booked had a separate bedroom. Yeah,
which is really a good idea. Like, it was way more comfortable, to be honest.
Yes. Oh, that's funny.
The other one, remember, we're like, oh, I got this place. It's kind of rustic and everything. You're like, oh yeah, we go there. No Wi-Fi. Yeah. Or whatever. Remember that we were just sitting there. Anyways, no big deal. But the reason why I remember that is because I remember the conversation we had in the rustic, no Wi-Fi, and it was about a relationship. And I remember seeing you leaning into this guy, and I remember I was kind of that guy. That's the only reason I just had I had the instinct, I had the knowledge, I had the experience where, like, I was that controlling guy that attracted women that needed me. Right. And then when a woman didn't need me, I just wanted to control them. Like, oh, you can't, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, it's almost like you want to get back to that. I remember that conversation, Lorri. I really appreciate that you let me even have these conversations with you. It's not every day you can talk to a lady about a relationship she's in and challenge it. Yeah. And think twice about it. Like, that was a very cool moment. So
yeah, it was for me too. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about business for a second. We'll shift gears. And if you were to give advice to a young entrepreneur, what's the biggest one or two lessons that you've acquired or gained in regarding a business? I know you deal with a lot of designers and other people, but contextually, I don't know if you can answer, but let me just ask you, what's some business advice in regarding to building a business that you've learned that's invaluable?
It would be hard to, sort of narrow that down to
I'm not giving you context, right?
I would say, in terms of people just starting out with a new business, one of the things I learned, and fortunately, sort of for me, I guess, I was almost finished a business degree when I had my baby. So I had a little bit of education, but the part that I remembered the most was like the cash flow part of things. So like reading your balance sheets and your financial statements, that really stuck with me. I was a finance major, so that part of
very cool.
Really stuck with me. And I think that was one of the reasons we made money in our first year. We made a lot of money in our first year. So a lot of small businesses, really struggle. And we actually I went again, go big or go home. I wasn't, a designer working out of my house. Like, I literally rented a space. There were two of us. I just thought to myself, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be professional. I'm going to do it properly. Yeah. Not to say that there's anything wrong with designers who work out of their home. There's no judgment around that.
Just who you are, Lorri.
Just who I am.
Yeah.
I would say understanding your financials. So understanding cash flow, money in and money out, is probably my number one lesson that I would tell any new entrepreneur. Understand your financials and your balance sheets and your profit and loss statements. It's really, really important. You need to know what your expenses are. How much revenue do you need to actually make every month to pay your bills? Like, I'm amazed at how many business owners, not even just new business owners, but business owners who have no idea what that number is.
Yeah.
So that would be probably my number one thing.
Love that.
The second thing I would say is getting super clear on your ideal client and your ideal project in our case. So what are you super good at? What lights you up? If it's again, I'm speaking from a design point of view, but if it's renovations, if it's, decorating a house and helping people pick their furniture and artwork and accessories and all of that. Is it, big custom homes? For me, the large custom homes, the construction side of things totally fires me up.
Cool.
So, and I know that's kind of my zone of genius, if you want to call it that. That's one of the things I'm really good at. I'm also really, really good at building relationships with clients, and
So good.
understanding where you're really good, and then targeting your business, all of your branding, like all of that, you're targeting that specific type of client. For me, for example, if I know that it's these large custom homes, I might not be going after some of the smaller stuff. I might be saying no to some of the entry level homes and things like that. And not because there's no value in that, it's just not where my target is. So I might have to be doing advertising and running events that target that mid to high income earner, or the two professional household, like that kind of thing, right? So it just changes how you target your business. And I think it's important. We all know the 80-20 rule applies to so much, but that 20% of your clients are going to give you 80% of your business. And I've really learned to target that 20%, and then I'm learning to get as much as I can possibly get from, if that's, let's say 20 clients, then I want to do their Christmas decorating. I want to do everything I can for those 20 clients because they're my bread and butter.
That is such good wisdom. It's funny, Lori, we rarely talk about business, me and you. It's so funny watching you kind of shine there. I'm like, oh, she's really smart. I didn't even like I knew that, but I never seen it happen. That's really good advice.
And maybe just, I'll do.
You're on a roll. Go.
Because I'm in the middle of, and I have been in the middle of it for a while. So as you start to scale your business, I think every business gets to a point where it's like there's only so many hours in the day. Like I can only do so much design. And so you get to this revenue plateau where I'm not going to be able to do anymore if I don't add another person or two people or something like that. So I've gotten to that point where I've hired and it hasn't worked out, and I've gone back to, I just want it to be me and Angela. I don't want, and then I'm like, okay, I need another person, and we hire again. And I've gone through the ups and downs of that, and I've, had some success and some failure. But one of the things I mentioned Kelsey Ramsden earlier, but one of the questions that I had in our very first conversation was, help me understand. She runs these, massive multi-million-dollar businesses in construction, which is so cool to me. But
so cool.
I said, how do you delegate? Like, how do you get people to actually, do the work? Because I struggle with that, and nobody ever does it the way that I do it. And how do you hire the right person? And, the piece of advice, one of the pieces of advice she gave me, which has really made a massive difference recently, is how important it is when you hire somebody new. First of all, hire the right person. Hire the personality that's the fit for your business, not necessarily to plug a role. So I'd learned that before too, but she also reiterated that. But when you hire that person and you give them, here's your job title and here's your list of responsibilities or roles. We all do that. But she said, you need to go a step further. So just because their role is to, in my case, let's say, project manage. So I do all the design work. I have a file, everything that I've now sold to the client, and I hand it over to my assistant or office manager or whatever, and say, okay, it's now your job to project manage that. We need to purchase everything. When it comes in, you have to arrange delivery, like all of that, right? So I think in my head, well, that's perfectly clear, right? You know what they need to do. And Kelsey's like, no, it's important that you set boundaries for them. So, and it's also important that you clarify expectations, was the huge point that I wanted to make here. So not only am I giving you a role, but my expectation is that every Monday, you're going to tell me what's happening with each one of those projects. My expectation is that these are the decisions that you can make without consulting me, and these are the decisions that I want you to let me know about. So if it's impacting our profit in some way, you need to let me know. Do you know what I mean? So it's going beyond just telling them what they're responsible for and actually saying, here's what I expect. Here's what that actually looks like.
I find on that note, like when I'm working with people to try to hiring is one of the hardest things psychologically for people. It's the hardest thing I've run into, and it's the biggest thing that triggers emotional and internal development that I have to work on people's confidence, controlling issues, accountability to their own business, not wanting to see the truth. There's so many things that come up. What the problem is, how do you set boundaries and expectations if you're not 100% clear yourself? And I think that's where you self-sabotage when it comes to assistants and people that work for you. It's like, you need to be clear on what to do. Well, it's like, the thing is though, we're not like, what do I tell them to do? And that's because you don't have a control of your own business. Like, you don't have an accountability. You're just winging it. There's no, like, so that's why hiring someone can be the back door to getting your shit together.
Totally,
because
you have to develop systems so that they know.
Exactly. So when I work with someone, I'm like, they're like, have barely any revenue. I'm like, you need to hire someone. Well, yeah, I can't afford it. Oh no, this is going to move them forward faster than anything else, because they're going to have to, holy shit, I better maximize my schedule. I've got to pay for it. I've got to be more accountable, and I got to make the lists of things for them to do. It's a conscious shift. And so instead of like, hey, you need to be more time scheduled. No, they're not going to hire an assistant.
Yeah. Well, and probably the biggest thing, I'm sure you found this too, but I had to be clear on the whole purpose and mission of our business.
Exactly.
That to the person, right?
I know.
Like, oh, I don't.
It's the best. It's like, literally, we should start a course saying how to hire an assistant, but no one will know it's a business development life coaching course. And no, I'm not even joking. Like, we could just literally secretly going, like, they're like, I don't know what to do. Okay, great. What's your business about? Well, I do this. Well, okay, tell them that. Well, it's not really. And like, we could like literally do a business development course, how to hire someone. It's the back door. It's the back door to everything. That's why it's so hard. It's not like, I don't know what I'll get them to do. I don't know how I'll get them to pay. I don't, like, there's so many things, but those are just top level questions, right?
Absolutely. And
that's really cool advice she gave you though.
The minute you say to an employee, the reason we're in business is because of the experience we create for a client. And when I say that to someone, it's like, now, if client experience is our number one value, it helps them make decisions every day.
Love
right?
that. Now you're talking my language.
100%. That's what I've learned. And that is my number one value is I've said to designers before, and I believe this, that yes, we have to create a beautiful design at the end, and you want the client to be happy with it, but it's never going to be perfect. And it doesn't matter if it's perfect. What really matters is the experience that your client has from start to finish of that project. And that's what they remember. That's what they share with friends. The end result needs to be pleasing and they need to like it. Absolutely. But it's the experience that you take them through that is the most important part. And when your people working for you understand that it's, I've created this design that we're implementing, but it's not about the design.
Exactly.
It's about how we treat them now through the whole process. And it helps them, I think, in making decisions day to day. If they know in their mind, that's our number one value.
And do you think that creates culture in your company?
For sure it does. Absolutely. Because when I talk client experience, that can't help but roll over into how I run my business. I want also any employee that works for me, I want their experience working with me to be valuable and be important the same way that I want a client's experience to be important. So if impact and experience are my values, then that's going to roll over into the culture that we create as well.
That's amazing. Do you know what's cool is when we start seeing people that work for us start saying these things. They're like, oh yeah, we did this client experience thing. I'm like, oh man, that's mine. Yes. It's like they're buying in. Yeah. It's not a buy-in, it's a believe in.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they try to get buy-in, but they need to believe it. So if you can't, like if it's just a freaking thing on a wall, like you're not going to get buy-in. Like we're the best, most customer. No. It's like when you come in from lunch, you're like, look at this, guys. I've got this. This girl did a shout out on Facebook because look at this. Look, what are we celebrating? I think is kind of like how we create culture. Like are we celebrating a top line revenue or how many signups? Like what if we celebrate client experience? What does that business look like? Right.
Yeah, and it's so easy for employees to get behind because now they have an impact. When it's all about the design how does an employee impact that? When I'm the one doing the design, they can't. But when it's about client experience, they
Great point.
have a massive impact on that, and how the ideas they bring to the table or how they impact the client experience becomes just as important as the design that I do, at the beginning, or that Angela does. So
Yeah.
I think
It's also, it sounds like a real competitive edge, because if you think, let's put 10 designers in a row, and let's just say they're not, let's say they're incrementally different. Like if the best designer in the group is a little bit better than the other designers, so they're just a bit better, but design has to be it's got to be so contextual. It's got to be so opinion. Like, how can you be better or worse as a designer?
Yeah.
I could be the polka dot man designer and become very famous.
Exactly.
And someone could be like, that's stupid. So where's your competitive edge? It sounds like the client experience is the only way to have a competitive edge, is the experience they go through versus the design. Is that kind of what you're saying?
It's absolutely the only way. And Ben, it's also the reason why having a formal education in design wasn't necessary for me, because my genius and my gift is in creating the experience. And so the design becomes secondary. I think I'm a very good designer, but I've learned through experience. So was I as good, 10 years ago as I am today? Not a chance. But the experience, I was probably almost, sure, I've learned stuff, but I think
what makes it good? So we assume that we have all the same grading system here. Like, I was a designer at this level, in 10 years, I'm better. Well, the thing is, though, what the hell is a good designer?
Right.
Like, but like, in your opinion, the Lorri, opinion, what makes a good designer?
In my opinion, what makes a good designer is taking a client through a positive experience at the end, where they walk into their house and they think, wow, I can't wait to come home every day. And that doesn't mean, like, you've been to my house, Ben, and I used to have a lot of, I was really self-conscious about it sometimes, because I didn't want people to come like, oh, it's not the most beautiful, and I don't have draperies on these windows over here. And
no one even sees it. I walk in like, this is amazing. You're like, oh my goodness, I have no draperies. How can you should be judging me for this right now because I have no draperies.
Yes. And I've gotten past a lot of that on my own. But my house feels welcoming and warm, and it is truly an expression of me. I know that because people have said, oh my gosh, this feels like you. This home feels like you. So that's my end goal with every client. But I do believe
it's about the client. See, this is really interesting for people. Entrepreneurs need to hear this. Lorri's success is, I believe, is client experience. Yes. But you just said it. It is about the client, not about your design. Right. And I think I see designers as like, oh my goodness, you got to trust me. I know what I'm doing. And they all talk like that. And and so what I'm thinking, though, is that I think this is where, that education doesn't matter, because what happens is the reason why these high net worth people want to deal with you is because you understand them, and then you create the design around them. I'm just assuming. I'm looking for, like, is that kind of what you're saying? I think the client, because you're just going about, let's design around what the client's needs are and do you do their style as well? Or is it like, how do you navigate that?
The challenge, the fun part for me is always, I have a list of questions that I will loosely talk about at every initial meeting with a client. But really my goal in that is reading between the lines. I think I'm very intuitive. And so it's trying to understand often it's a couples and who have very different likes and wants and needs. And it's sort of learning to navigate and ask the right questions. And I intuitively just get a sense of what's going to make them collectively feel amazing in their house. And I can't even tell you the number of times, Ben, where what they told me they wanted, I intuitively knew it's not what they wanted.
Risky. Doesn't that sound risky?
It's scary. It is scary.
Yeah, it's an absolute trust in yourself, Lorri.
Yes. To be able to say to them, you know what? I'm going to present a design to you that I think you're going to love, knowing that it's going to take them maybe way outside their comfort zone, or maybe I don't know. Sometimes I just get a sense that somebody wants what everybody else has, but that's not really what they want.
Yeah,
totally. I I can say, oh, I feel like this is more in tune with what you guys, how you're going to feel comfortable and how you're going to want to live.
I think
And
people want that in a designer, a business person, because if someone, even as a real estate agent, okay, running around, I'm coaching an agent, they're showing houses, right? And they're like, the thing is, you walk around and go, oh yeah, it's beautiful. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you know what? I've done a ton of research, and what people want is an opinion.
they want opinion.
They want a hard, strong opinion going, I wouldn't do this, or know what, this house has issues. Oh no, I love the kitchen. Well, just so you know, there's literally no counter space. If you want to take a real look at it, just make sure you know, because I can see it's kind of an illusion here, guys. But people aren't, the thing is though, the lack of trusting in yourself, I think, waters down the attractiveness, because I want to hear the real shit. Even if I'm sensitive around an area, and you're a magician at this. Oh my goodness. When there's a sensitive area and you can actually still challenge me on an area that I don't want to be challenged on, and I felt like it was a great experience. I don't know how you do that. but I think that's the thing that we need to encourage with business owners, is to say your freaking opinion and stand on it. Be able to be confident enough to disagree with a client, but how you do that is respectfully. That's all.
And I've heard from many clients actually over the years that have said to me, that they've worked with designers before who just, you're showing them 3 tiles and it's like, oh, but the client will say, oh, but I really like this one.
Okay. Yeah. It's not, yeah. Right? Oh, I can see what you mean.
But this one is nice too. Oh, okay. Right. And there's no opinion. And that.
So no opinion, no value.
I would say 95% of the time I present one option. Where
this is the carpet.
A lot of, and I just say, you know what, you have to trust that I've looked at 20 carpets or 50 carpets. This is the one, and here's why. And they're like, okay, once in a while, depending on the client, and if I feel like they need to be given a choice, and you and I have talked about this, because some people just need a choice.
Well, psychologically, it's just a perceiving type personality type. You need options.
I'll have another option in my back pocket that I'll be like, here's just a second choice.
But it's, I love the undertone of this, because are you saying that, like, it's, if you don't, like, you have to really trust what you're doing. Like, it's like, you have to trust yourself.
You do, Ben. You do have to trust yourself, but you also
willing to fail, maybe?
No, you have to be willing to not be perfect. You have to know that there is
I like that.
Perfect design. You don't have to create this, blow them away. Wow. That's not the goal. That's not me anyways. That, like, maybe other design, like, I'm not going to, comment on how other people run their business. But for me personally, what I had to learn is that there isn't one right answer. But what I need to do is make that client feel confident in what I'm showing them, that I have thought of all of the scenarios for them, and that they don't need to think about it because I've already done that for them and I get them. So my goal is to have them feel confident that I get them. Maybe that's a better way to say it. And that my design is going to be beautiful, but is it going to be the only way that they could have done it? No, but I'm still going to sell them on the design that I am proposing. So it's a little bit different than the pressure that a lot of new designers feel, because I've worked with quite a few of them who feel this, they're so nervous going in to do their presentations, because it's like, oh, what if I picked the wrong paint color? What if and I say to them, like, you didn't, like, you can't
really fail.
Your design is good, and it doesn't need to be this perfect blow them away design. It can be 10 times better than they ever would have been able to do on their own, and just trust that, right? And so that's part of, and then you get more and more, as I got more experience, I started, like, even to this day, Ben, if you asked me the colors that were opposite each other on the color wheel, like, I haven't the foggiest idea about any of that stuff.
I love that.
But I can look at a room and I can say, I need contrast here. That's what's interesting to me. And those are the things that I've learned. It looks better when the floor is dark and this is light, or whatever. And I've learned that through experience. So that comes.
It's like a chef. Eventually your palate changes, you grow different flavors. That's just experience. So sometimes getting experience is actually more valuable than getting the color palette memorized, right?
For me, it's been, that's
You're
100%.
so nice. So I'm already like saying everyone needs to do this. You're like, well, for me, ain't for me. So we're getting kind of close to time, and Lorri, we will have to do this again. I see us putting an entrepreneur, whether it be from my world or your world, in the podcast with me and you, and I think we coach them. And I think that would be a massive value for whoever gets on that show. We may have to put it out there as a contest or something to get onto the show where me and you coach them, because I think together, I think I'd like to, I think they would have a pretty good high value experience. That's coming, by the way. When someone listens to this, I'm sure there's an episode coming up or that's already done in the future. But I want to, by the way, you said this, willing to not be perfect. I'm going to build something with that, by the way. I'm a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Willing to not be perfect. I think there's something to, you said that, and I'm like, man, I am going to build something on that, because willing to not be perfect was one of your secrets in business. Willing to not be perfect. I think that's just describes so much of what I believe, what I see, and what you said is amazing. I got so many other questions. Let me ask you. We're gonna go a little over time, because I want to ask you a question about someone that's half committed versus all in.
Right.
Can you tell me just talk around that a little bit? It's like about being half committed versus all in. I think that's a huge problem in entrepreneurship.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, again, I'll just take it back to maybe one of my own life lessons is that, you should take action before you're ready. And that to me has been, a massive driving force. Our mentor, Philip McKernan, one of his quotes that's my favorite is, in the absence of clarity, take action.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's kind of saying the same thing, but it is definitely, it goes to what you just said about being willing to not be perfect. You don't have to have everything figured out to take that next step. And I've really learned that, in that taking action gains you experience, which then, moves you forward and gives you more confidence. So if you want your life to change, you have to be willing to take that first step. And you know me, Ben, and there have been times when I've struggled out of fear to take that first step. And it's like, what if I fail? Like,
totally.
That's we
do that. We help people with that all the time.
So what if I fail?
The helping. Yeah.
And so it's like, well, can you break that down into just a first step? Is there something that you can do that's just, or the first 2 or 3 steps, so that it, you don't necessarily need to burn your bridge or burn your business. And like for some people, that is what they need to do. They literally need to burn the bridge and take a leap. For other people who are more cautious, perhaps different than you and I, Ben, they might need to not burn the bridge, but just take a couple of, dip their toe in and take a couple of steps. But the action is the overarching message here, is that you need to take some action forward, which will then give you a little bit more clarity to take
belief in yourself. Yeah. I always say, let's get you a win. Like, even if it's like it's just like a guy that's overweight or whatever, right? Let's get you a win. Okay, great. You ate carrots today.
Yeah.
And you haven't eaten carrots in 3 months. Because it's like, like I always say, if you want to go to the gym, like I want to get into a gym routine. So I say, okay, walk into the gym and freaking eating a donut. I don't even care, but just go to the gym and stand there, and every couple of days go stand in the gym. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, I shouldn't eat a donut. Yeah. You drop the donut. We've made progress. I feel like we look at other people and it inhibits our growth, because they look at you or I, holy shit, you want to go through my life? You want to go through your life? Do you get what I've got? No. Let's start with a win. Let's just start with one win, one video. Let's start with one ask. Let's start with one follow-up. Let's just start with putting an offering out. Very small win can be the amazing starting point. And I think there could be a self-sabotage for people that do burn the boats, like myself. There's times where you don't burn all your boats. Yeah. And I know that's a big belief. And I actually love the message of burning your boats. I get excited about burning the whole thing down. I'm going to win because I know I can pull it off. But there's something to always remember, like you can burn all your boats, but don't go bankrupt. Like, how stupid. Like, be smart. Like, burn your boats, but you can't feed your family. Well, now you can't do nothing. So I feel like there's some wisdom involved.
And I can give you a really practical example. So in my coaching business, Ben, what I did, this was about 1.5 years ago now. I knew that I felt like that was something that I really wanted to do more of moving forward. I wanted to have a coaching group. So the very first thing I did is I thought of 10 women that I had met in Edmonton over the years, the last few years, people that I just really liked. And I thought like they were interesting, they're entrepreneurs, and I invited them all to a dinner at a restaurant here in Edmonton. And I didn't have a whole lot of intention around that, but it was getting me out of my comfort zone. None of these women knew each other. Most of them didn't know each other. So it was getting a group of women who didn't know each other for like 3 hours in an evening to come in and see what would happen. And I really had no idea other than that. And when I got there, there was all this pressure for me to sort of figure out, like some of them said, oh, well, what's this for? And I'm like, I'm just inviting you to dinner, right? And amazingly, so I actually invited 11 and 10 came.
You literally just said we're inviting a group of women for dinner. That's it?
I used paperless post and I sent out 11 invitations. One was away. One lady was away. So
real spammer.
Yeah, I know.
All 11.
They all came. And surprisingly,
100% open rate on that. That's good.
101, I think one person phoned me ahead of time and just said, what's it about? And I said, I'm inviting a bunch of women that I like together for dinner.
Wow.
And so, I mean, you don't have to do this, but I paid for dinner. I had everybody come. And at the beginning, I just stood up and I just said, you know what, you guys, one of my dreams is to coach female entrepreneurs down, at some point. And I just knew I needed to take the first step. So that's what tonight's about. I really just want us to be able to ask each other a few questions. I want to talk about the conversations that nobody's talking about, how hard it is to be a mom and an entrepreneur at the same time. And so we went around the table and each person just talked about, one challenge they were facing today in their business or their life. And then it opened up this amazing conversation. I just talked about it with one of the girls. I had one of my mastermind dinners last night, actually. And one of the ladies in my coaching group who was at that dinner said, I was just thinking the other day, how incredible that was. And I was totally blown away by how open, I never thought people who didn't know each other would be able to get to that level of depth. But anyways, it's just an example of taking one step that I didn't have an outcome that I wanted. There was no big master plan that I'd created. It was just, let's take the step and see what that feels. Do I even like that? Do I want to keep going? Do I want to take the next step, or do I want to shift or whatever?
You moved forward.
I moved. Yeah.
You made a move, like doing nothing did nothing. But now it's like you got paid clients. This is really happening. You've already ran, you've got a bit of a higher ticket programs. It's just that step. Love that. I think it's a really great message to leave this audience 100%. We are coming to time here. So what I want to do is at the end of every show, I always like to put myself on the fire, and I'd like to ask if you have a question for me. And actually, you know me literally better than most people on the planet, to be honest. I consider you one of my closest friends, but you've seen the good, bad, and the ugly. But yeah, ask me a question. I'd love to answer it, and I don't care what it is, challenge or encouragement, doesn't matter.
Okay. I think that
oh man, that's like a mysterious look. Here we go. Oh wow! For people that aren't watching the YouTube channel, she just kind of put her hands together, like as if she was going to them back and forth, like, "Okay, it's time." Okay.
So let's just say a year from now, you and I are going out for lunch, Ben, and we are celebrating something that you've accomplished. What would that be?
I think in a year from now, I am feeling vulnerable, which is like so normal. I no longer need any revenue, period, from my real estate actual team, which creates a lot of revenue. that would be where the like, it's funny because I make lots of money, but the thing is, having that is where I sit today, is in between two worlds.
Right.
Where I run a real estate business, one of the top ones in Western Canada. I have a team of 6, where that machine could come or go. Doesn't matter. It is no relevant at all to my life anymore. And all the income, every bit of income, comes from the coaching world, which is substantial change to just, if I don't know, that's kind of where that would be I'd be sitting there extremely happy that it's because of, it's now the focus. It's almost like taking all the focus and putting it toward what I deeply love to do.
I love that answer. I can't wait for that lunch.
I don't know why that's so hard. You know what I mean? I feel like it's hard to really go after your dreams. I don't know why it's so hard, because it's so easy to build a business. It's so easy to make money, but to really live that life that you want to live, there's such unbelievable friction for me anyways, to say like, I want this life. And I teach people, go after the life you want. And cause I am doing that. I'm on the path with them. I'm not a leader. I'm side by side. Like, let's build a life. But why so hard? Like, is it because we don't deserve it? Is it because we feel like some weird psychological upbringing where it has to be a grind to have, to appreciate it? Or why can't you make a ton of money doing what you love? And it's so sellable. Like, people buy the shit out of those online programs that say that, but it's not like, to build a business is easy. Like, I make tons of money building businesses, but why so hard to it is a little bit burn the boat and only do what you love, you know, like it's easier just to have a few things cooking.
Yeah.
But that's why I hesitate to. It's like, I don't know why is it harder than just going and building a revenue-based business? I don't understand that totally yet.
I have to say that out loud as well, because, you know, let's face it, that real estate business that you've built is like, some people would look at that and think, oh my gosh, that's what I want. Like, that's what I wish that I had.
Yeah.
And does it almost feel disrespectful to not be grateful for that?
I know,
right?
totally.
But in your case, it has nothing to do with gratitude or respect. Like, that's a business you've built. It's just not where your heart is. And I think I knew that about you, but I was really curious what you would say, you know, sort of a year from now. I think we'll probably be celebrating a lot of things, but I feel like that is a huge one for you. So I appreciate your honesty.
Totally. Yeah. I appreciate the question, and it'd be a real one. So, well, Lorri, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. We literally will have to do this again. I think there's a lot of topics we can take, but I definitely see us having someone on the show that we're going to support together, and their mind will be blown, or they're going to be really mad. Either way, I don't mind that. Well, with you on it, I'll make them mad, and then you'll help them land. I'm telling you, it'll work perfect. I'll crack them open. Like, that was a little hard, Ben. Like,
and I'll be the velvet glove afterwards.
The velvet glove. I'll shake it up. You kind of figure it out. I don't know. Anyways, thank you so much, Lorri, and I'll really appreciate you as a friend. Is there anything, final words, or anything that you feel like's maybe left outstanding that you'd want to say, or any closing remarks? If not, we can.
I don't think so, other than the only thing I would say that I haven't said already is, I think it's really important to take time to dream. So even the question that I just asked Ben, like, for me, it's been really, really important to take time to look ahead and visualize what I want, and to, you know, and I probably do it at least once a month, if not more than that, to just say, you know, I took this from our mutual friend Phoebe, but, you know, wouldn't it be awesome if? And I ask myself that question and say, wouldn't it be awesome if? And I just, you know, write. And it's amazing the things that come out.
Look at this. This is what I've been doing. This is what I've been doing lately. It says, well, you probably can't even see it.
What is it? I can't read your writing.
I literally have, look at, this is all written.
Oh.
It's called There Will Be a Day When. And I've literally just implemented this entire thing. I've actually got a journal being designed for my crew, my mastermind group on that.
Cool.
So yeah, no, I love it too. I think it's a big hole in a grinded out world, is that you got to stop and dream a little bit, because that's really checking the compass. Like, it's, you know, like, going the wrong direction for too long it's hard. That's the cost of the turn is too high.
Yeah.
Like eventually you're like, I might as well just keep rolling. Like that's where you got to check in. It's like you're so far off track that you
Totally.
actually got to turn around and go backwards to go forwards. Like that's check in to make sure you know where you're going. Right.
And when you ask, for me personally, when I ask that question and just write down whatever comes into my head, there's so much honesty in that that I might not have the courage to say otherwise. Or, oh,
Yeah.
do I really want to write a book? Do I like all of these? Like, where did that come from? And that's
Yeah.
happened to me before, where it's been
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I would.
I was just doing it yesterday, and I wrote this because I always see myself on stage. I close my eyes. I'm on stage all the time. Close my eyes. I'm helping teenagers. I'm closing my eyes, and I came up with this idea just by just saying, like, I'm like, there's a day I was walking on the stage. Here's what I did, and I literally got into this like auto writing, almost like, you know what? I have 3 or 4 people on stage that are filled with regrets. I
Mm,
get the one person to say, you know what? I never got the courage to ask the girl out, and I'm single and I'm 70. I want to display regret on stage with 3 or 4 different regrets, and I want them to inspire the room to do something right then and there to change their life, because you want it to be 70, and like it's going to be subtly dark. That's what I do, and that's so I've already envisioned this whole talk, and it's all about not just like no regrets. I'm like, here's a regret. Let's look at it. His
yeah.
name is John. I know a guy that literally is that guy. I don't know who he is, where he is. I don't know how to get a hold of him. But like, man, like if there's people out there that have regrets for real, I want to talk to these guys, because
Right.
I've got to talk to give. And so see what happens just by dreaming a little
Oh,
bit. I've got the full vision of walking on stage. I've got a guy that's talking about his regrets. And then I'm going to talk about, let's not be that. Let's change it now.
yes.
Like, let's not have regrets. People love talking about no regrets, but let's talk about the guy that has regrets.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm just kind of went off there, but that's from dreaming.
Yeah. Love it. And thank you very, very much for having me. It was lots of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Lorri.